Hey, what is going on, everybody? How are you all doing today? I hope you all are having a wonderful and fantastic day today, and if not, hopefully you all will have a better tomorrow. So today we are going to be reviewing RWBY Volume 6, Chapter 11, The Lady in the Shoe. So we'll be talking about the chapter first off, and then I'll give my thoughts on it a little bit throughout it, and then give my overall thoughts and the verdict of the chapter at the very end. So sit back, relax, I hope you all enjoy. Let's go ahead and get started. So first, we start with our heroes, RWBY and the gang, and they're still continuing to fight off against Cordovin. And Weiss asks RWBY if she wants to fight Cordovin, and RWBY states that they fought giant monsters and things of that sort before. This is just a little old lady and a giant mech. Well, I don't disagree with Weiss trying to question this one because, well, going up against the Elysian military and a woman who's kind of crazy, has a vendetta out against Maria, and decides to want to take her down because of their old rivalry. As well as wanting to make an example out of children for, just trying to steal a ship. So, out of Cordovin's anger, she goes ahead and just shoots off one of the missiles at the ship that Maria's flying, and it doesn't work because RWBY gets in the way of shooting it and explodes mid-air while trying to hit Maria. Now, the face that RWBY makes here is kind of humorous to me because it's almost as if she's just thinking, it's just a giant mech. I got a sniper rifle. I've got your missiles where I want them. You're not going to be able to take us on because, we're just a bunch of kids up against a military force. Just the look on her face makes it seem like RWBY is just better than a giant mech, which is kind of humorous to me. I kind of find that to be comedic. So, because of RWBY stopping the impact of the missile, Cordovin doesn't take too kindly to that and decides, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and continue to attack everybody else. And she decides to fire her lasers, which, it's just a bunch of children, and she just decides, I'm gonna just take them all out with a giant cannon. Yeah, that makes the Atlas military look great, especially the one leading this Argus base. Cordovin's nuts. I've said it multiple times. I'm saying it again. She's insane. So Weiss tells Maria to dive down, and once they dive to ground level, that's when Weiss jumps out of the ship, and she uses a barrier to protect everyone from the impact of the blast. And I gotta say, it's very durable to be able to survive that laser. I'm just gonna throw that one out there right now. Extremely durable if it's strong enough to survive the impact of that. So then that's when RWBY and the gang decide to try to come up with a plan on how they can stop the mech and protect the ship from any damage. So then that's when Jean comes up with an idea because he states that this mech is actually qualified for taking on Grimm. It's not really meant to take on humans or anything smaller than giant Grimm. So Jean comes up with the idea that they need a distraction, which Nora then responds with, "You mean us, don't you?" Meaning Rin and herself. And so that's when Jean states that we can make our size an advantage, to which could be a good idea if everyone splits up and uses each other as a diversion until somebody can eventually take down the mech. Now, this is not a bad idea, but this could still be reckless considering it could have still potentially gotten someone killed. But using size as the advantage against a giant opponent, that could still work. Just, this still could have risked someone's life. And then that's when RWBY decides to ask Maria if she could keep the ship intact and out of harm's way. Then Maria states that they can take away her driver's license, but she won't let them have the ship. Whew. Yeah, that sounds dangerous to leave it to someone that's had their driver's license taken away and then has shown to act a little crazy yourself from time to time. Yeah, I think I agree with Lyrin. It's real reassuring. That's why I'm glad Oscar decided to go with Maria to make sure that he could spot a weak point. Because with her crazy piloting skills, apparently, that could come over as a bad thing. So Crow also stated that he could have a bird's eye view. We should start calling him Hawkeye from now on. Oh, I'm terrible. So Weiss then asks RWBY, "You need me on the ground?" And then RWBY says, "Not exactly." Therefore, RWBY has a plan for Weiss. So then that's when Cordovin notices that everything's quiet. But then she sees everybody start to split apart. You see Maria go one way, Team Juniper go another, and then you see RWBY fly upward with her semblance. One thing to note about this scene here is that when you see Maria fly away from the little ice barrier that's there, you notice that the ship is bigger than the barrier itself, but apparently it hid behind the barrier as if it was smaller than it, but you can clearly tell that it's a little longer than the barrier itself. So it's kind of funny how that actually looked when it was coming out of the barrier. And so as RWBY attacks, the new song starts playing, known as Big Metal Shoe. As confirmed from Jeff Williams, this is not from Caroline Cordovan's perspective, but the song is about her. So here are the lyrics to this song. Check you out in your big metal shoe, fighting so many kids don't know what to do. You got some heavy metal, but big ain't bad. This little riding hood's just way too rad. Mirror, mirror, who will lose it all? Soundly whip those children or your cradle's gonna fall. 'Cause I'm alive like a puppet with a heartbeat. I'm on fire and I'm flying off the dope sheet. You're gonna wind up like that Robin at your last tweet. You're heading for a fall and you're nearing the end. Like a house made of straw, nobody's putting you together again. So that is the song that is about Caroline Cordovan for now, and that's as much as the lyrics that we have. But I like how it has an 80s kind of tune to it. So it's a pretty interesting one. I think Jeff and Casey Lee, from what we got of these lyrics, I think they did a good job. So getting back to everything, the slow motion parts I didn't think were per se the best. I think they were a little overutilized during the scene when RWBY jumps to go after the mech. I think that it's just a little overused, but it was okay for a couple of parts. And so as they're attacking, they realize that they're not going to have projectiles work on this mech, and that's because there's a shield generator producing a shield over the mech itself. So they're going to have to try to find a way to take that down. And so when RWBY attacks the mech, thing is, she stabs right into it, and the mech comes falling over. Now, why this causes a problem is because this puts the people of Argus into panic. Because, for one, you have Caroline Cordovan, who is already throwing out negative emotions. You have RWBY, who is opposing her, as well as their group, who is throwing out negative emotions. And the people are going to be terrified of this loud shaking and booms that they're probably hearing from the city, because they could be thinking that something terrible could be happening. So who's to say that this may not lure some grim or something to the city? You see, this is a problem here, that this fight is going on. It's like one big magnet, and it's a magnet of negative emotions. I could draw in creatures that, I don't know, sense it. I'm just saying. And so as they continue onward, Lyran jumps on the arm of the mech, while Jean and Nora attack the mech itself. So then that's when Caroline gets agitated. She gets the mech up. RWBY starts to slide towards the dash of the mech, and that's when Caroline tells RWBY to get off of her, takes the mechanical arm to try to grab her, and that's when RWBY jumps down, and she is saved by Weiss. And then Weiss makes the statement of, "What would you have done if I didn't catch you?" And that's when RWBY said, "Yeah, I knew you would." So this is a pretty comedic moment. I thought it was kind of funny, and it feels like your typical protagonist whenever it comes to shonen in this regard, because it seems like they wouldn't come up with a plan at that point, and then it would come down to something to save them at the last moment, like a comrade or something to that effect. So I thought that was kind of funny, and as you can tell with how RWBY's plan, as she said she had, went with trying to be funny with Weiss, and you could tell that the joke didn't really land. So yeah, while they're in a dire situation, apparently they can still joke around. The way I kind of see this is kind of like how they are still teenagers and how they are still maturing as characters. So RWBY herself still kind of takes things in a jokative manner, so she's still maturing. So I kind of see it like that. So one thing I did notice, though, when it comes to the animation here, and I wanted to just bring this out there. So this is like with Volume 6, Chapter 1, when RWBY uses her semblance to save Weiss, and it seems very static. It doesn't really feel like there's a flow, like a curve with the semblance. Well, right here with the Queen Lancer scene when it's flying around, it doesn't seem like the body of the Queen Lancer is actually going within a curving motion. It just seems like it's flying straight in a static line. So I kind of noticed that, and I felt like that was kind of off there. But then we get to Lyran, and he is still climbing on the mech, and he finds the shield generator. So him and Crow decide to take down the shield generator, and once it's down, that's when you have Nora starting to ambush it with her barrage of missiles. And apparently, from what we saw here, don't mess with Lyrin, or else you're going to get Nora on you, because it seems that if anything goes wrong with Lyrin, Nora takes that very seriously. So yeah, I thought that was kind of comical. But the thing is here, they're putting a little too much comedy into this scene, although the Cordovan fight I think is meant to be more comedic, which I'll talk more about that in a moment. But I thought the Nora scenes, whenever she makes jokes like, you said it wasn't beach season, or get back here with my man, I thought they were kind of funny. I thought they kind of landed there a little bit. And what I did like that they did with Jean's semblance is that he used his to amplify Nora's so that she'd be protected from when the arm hit them. So it was good to see that. Now, I do think that they could have actually used his semblance in more ways than just this moment alone, and I'm going to really get to that in just a bit, but at least they used it, and at least it was for protection, so there was use of Jean's semblance, and that was good. So after they get hit and they're knocked down, that's when Cordovan decides, oh look, you are in my sights, so I'm just going to shoot you down. So then that's when the Queen Lancer gets destroyed, and the rest of the group that was on the Queen Lancer goes flying back onto shore, and Ruby almost plummets and falls into the ocean, but luckily she uses the Crescent Rose to save herself. And what I did like about the Crescent Rose that I noticed close up in this scene was it actually has a couple of scars on it. I thought that was pretty cool, because if you see in the intro, you see that it looks like it's a little battle scarred. It's got a little bit of scars on it from seeing some action over periods of time. Well, they actually implemented it into the scene when we see her Crescent Rose be open. So that's something I actually did like. I actually didn't mind that. And if you notice the scene when Cordovan throws the missile that Maria shoots at her, you really notice the scars on the Crescent Rose then. That's when they're very noticeable, so I did like that. So that's when Maria decides she's going to try to lure Cordovan to attack her, and then that's when Cordovan throws the very missile that Maria shoots at her, which I would have thought that the missile would have exploded within the hand when the hand grabbed it from the mech, so I'm surprised that the mech hand didn't crush it enough to destroy it. So she throws the missile back, and then that's when the ship starts to go haywire from the explosion, and then that's when it cuts to black, and we start to see the Blake and Adam fight continue. Now, there are some things I'm going to say about this fight. For one, the choreography here and animation is very good. This really got me into the fight, was how well they really went with this animation and choreography. As I've said before, and I'm going to make praise again where praise is deserved, just like with the Neo and Cinder fight, this fight is excellent. I think this is one of the better fights we've had in a long time, as well as the Neo and Cinder fight. These are the two fights that really show the talent of the animators, and I really enjoyed this. This needs to continue right here. Joel Mann clearly knows what he is doing when it comes to the fight choreography. He is definitely someone who knows what he's doing here. He understands the flow of the human body, and he is very good at capturing a fight, and is very fast-paced and very well done. So props to you, Joel Mann, and the animators working with you. I think you all have done a very good job on this fight, as well as the Neo and Cinder fight. Now, I'll talk more about the choreography and the animation in a moment. So Adam says, can you do anything besides run? Yeah, see, that's the thing. Coming from the guy who also ran because he didn't want the Haven authorities to catch him, yeah, you ran too. Now, to be fair, you ran because you didn't want to be caught by the authorities, so I will at least give you that, but you still ran. So, yeah, there's that. But, at the same time, he did it for good reason. Now, Blake, on the other hand, yeah, she ran from her problems. She ran because she was afraid. Not only that, but she also ran from Adam because, oh, I don't know, he stalked her all through Anima. So I have to at least give props to Blake on running from Adam because, well, he was stalking her, and it makes sense why she'd run from him. Now, one thing I have to give props to is this. They have a change of scenery. Now, I like this because we're seeing different areas. I like that we get to see more areas that they're going to fight in. Because first it starts at the relay tower, then they go into the forest, then they go to this waterfall mountainside. I like this. This is a good change of scenery. Another thing I'm going to bring up that I did like here is they brought back the shotgun sheath. One thing that I've had a problem with that they did not use with Adam's character for a while. is they didn't use his shotgun sheath. Now they finally are using it again. I'm glad to see this because it was back in the black trailer and it had been gone for a while, and now it's finally back. It wasn't even in Volume 5, and it wasn't even in the Adam character short. So I'm glad that we got to see the shotgun sheath again. So this is an improvement. This is something that they have clearly noticed that they needed to implement back in because it was a part of Adam's weaponry. So I'm glad to see that. So then Adam goes on to state to Blake as they continue fighting, he says that he wouldn't be doing this if she had just behaved, and that she is selfish and that she is a coward. Well, Blake comes back with he is delusional, and that's when you see Adam take his blade to Blake. And here's what I like about this. Yet again, I have to bring up another good thing, is the scar that was given to her in Volume 3 by Adam. He did stab his blade into her. So there's that. Another throwback to Volume 3. So they're throwing some things back to the previous volumes. And I think it's interesting that Blake had used her coat to actually hide this wound that he inflicted upon her. I find that to be very interesting. But while he attacks, he breaks her blade. Now then, next question. Is Blake going to make a new weapon, or is she going to fix this one? See, that's going to be the next question. More than likely she'll just fix it. But, I wouldn't be surprised if she got something new. But I think she's going to fix this one. I don't think that she's going to throw her old weapon away. But that's just me. So, once that happens, Adam then finally does the one thing that people have been questioning for years about his character. Ever since the black trailer. What is under the mask? Some people have speculated silver eyes. Some people questioned whether it may have been a scar, in which I was more on that boat. I had believed that he had a scar from some kind of incident. Maybe humans had done something to him because he was Faunus. I had questioned that. I had wondered if that may have been something. And so when he is taking off his mask, in which this is what I like, is that Blake seems to see remorse. She seems to find it to be something that is depressing to her even, because what I like about this is some of the Faunus discrimination we have been needing to see. And there doesn't have to be a big explanation behind it, because just seeing this alone explains the discrimination behind the Faunus, and that is the fact that Adam has been branded by the Schnee Dust Company. That emblem over his eye that was branded there is SDC, and that stands for Schnee Dust Company. Now, whether or not that means that he didn't go for their labor, or he was against them, and then they tried to force him into doing so, or punished him in however way, this is proof of discrimination right here, because he is a Faunus. And this is something I actually am glad that they did. You can tell that they planned this out for a while, and I think this is a very good thing. Now on to Adam's statement for a quick moment, because I have a problem here. Because Adam goes on to state that people had hurt him in many different ways. So many people have hurt Adam. Okay. But now here's where my problem comes in. Because he then proceeds to state that nobody hurt him like Blake did. Okay. This is my problem. Instead of it being about the humans who had hurt him, it goes to it all being Blake that hurt him the most. When he has been discriminated against, he's been branded by humans, but yet Blake hurt him more because she left him. I don't think that's very good right there. I think that's bad writing, realistically. Because the scars and the damage that the humans have done to his body, that's not something that seemed to faze him. But apparently, because Blake left him, that's what is ultimately the biggest pain he's ever gone through. I don't agree with that writing. I think that is very bad writing for Adam's character, and I think that really threw him further under the bus of losing potential as a character. And then he asks, before he attacks Blake, what it's like to be alone. She then says that she's not alone, and that's when Yang shows up to help her out. And what I think's kind of funny is Adam makes fun of Yang's statement to how she says it's okay, catch your breath for a moment. And then that's when Adam says, it's okay, Blake. We have unfinished business. Personally, I kind of thought that was a little funny with his sense of humor there. Then we go on to Blake and Adam fighting, and I have to say, this was really good. This animation continues to be very good. this, in my opinion, is one of the best fights in the series. I think that they really did a good job with it. And there's one scene that literally made me think of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where Yang is punching at Adam, and it just literally made me think if Yang was just saying, Udo, 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 Udo. It just made me think of that, and I thought it was very hilarious. But I thought that the action here was done very well. And so, not only this, but this was not the only reference that I thought there was here. There was one other reference that made me think of another anime, which is Bleach. I literally thought that when Adam was using Moon Slice, I was immediately coming to the conclusion that he was imitating Ichigo, because it made me think of the Getsuga Tensho. I mean, seriously, it just felt like there was so many anime references in this fight in itself, even though that's not, I don't think, what they were trying to do there, but to me, that's what it felt like. But that's just my opinion. Now, what would have made things better if Yang just said, yada yada. If only she had said that, then I think that would have made things a lot better. But, just saying. So then, Blake opens up the Fauna Stacks, and she reads the information of Adam and the information on his Moon Slice, how it can absorb the energy in his blade, and then whenever he's ready, he can launch it out. And that's when Yang states that that's just cheap because he doesn't have to feel the damage. And that's the thing. It's odd that it's also tied to his own blade, but it's very overpowered. And I have to say, it's ridiculous. So then after attacks are dished out, then Yang starts to become exhausted. And Blake is already tired from previously fighting Adam before. So then that's when Adam is mad to see the two of them side by side. They're not really standing side by side, but, they're just a good distance apart. But still, nonetheless, that still makes him very furious. And so what he does is he uses his semblance, and one of the coolest scenes I think they could have done for him. I think that this is actually really cool looking with the electricity around his blade. I'm not going to deny, they did make Adam look cool here. And so then that's when he decides he dishes out his own attack that he's been storing up. And you see this huge wave of red, which is pretty cool. And I have, yet again, another problem though. While this was a cool attack animation, all it does is Yang comes out with a few scratches on her mechanical arm. Now, here's my problem, is that unless this arm tech here that Atlas worked on for Yang to have as a prosthetic arm, unless this is made to resist Adam's semblance, it should have chopped the arm off. Considering that, going back to Volume 3, he had a few of the shots from Blake's weapon in his blade when he cut off Yang's arm. Take a note, she also was full of her aura. So she was not low on her aura, and he cuts her arm off. In this case scenario, she has taken damage. She has been fighting him. And yet, the arm just takes a few scratches. Now, like I said, unless this is supposed to be resistant to attacks such as this doesn't make sense. And this is something that's not explained. And the next thing that I want to bring up here is Yang tells Adam that this is his last chance to leave. If he doesn't leave them alone, then they're going to finish him off. And that's when he notices that Yang's hand is starting to shake, and he states that, are you sure you're not just convincing yourself of that because you're going to die protecting her? And that's when Blake grabs her hand, and she states that she's not protecting me, I'm not protecting her, we're protecting each other. Now, what I do like about this statement is that Blake understands Yang's feelings more when it comes to the whole protection situation. She understands that it's not about Blake trying to protect Yang. It's not about Yang trying to protect Blake. It's about each other trying to protect one another. And I thought that was better than, oh, I'm going to protect you because you need someone to protect you. That's not what it's about. It's about one another looking after each other's backs. And I like that. I like that Blake came to the realization of understanding Yang there in that way. And I think it was better that they did it like that. And so what they do here is they leave it on a cliffhanger at this point to make you wonder what's going to happen next week. So here's what I'll say. We're going to go into the thoughts on this chapter now, my overall thoughts on everything. I'm going to talk about the good and the bad. So let's go ahead and get right into that now. So starting off, the Cordovan fight. Here's what I'm going to say. Neither side is right. Cordovan herself is not right because instead of trying to show the Atlas military's might and with her pride and arrogance thinking that she's better than everyone else, she could have just sent in her forces to do one thing: apprehend everybody. Now that wouldn't have been so hard, but instead she has to think that she's better than everyone else, and she just decides that she's going to take on everybody for the might of Atlas, to prove Atlas's strength, and that everyone should appreciate Atlas for its power. And at the same time, looking at RWBY and their group, they're going up against the Atlas military. So realistically, they're not any better. I mean, there is no right side here. They're both wrong, realistically. I mean, yeah, Cordovan should have at least heard out RWBY and their group, but at the same time, RWBY's group shouldn't have tried to go and steal an Atlas ship. So, really, no one's in the right here. And for Cordovan to let her own rivalry get in the way and just make things worse between her and Maria, yeah, that didn't help anything. That didn't make anything any better there in that situation. And besides, look at it like this. This could also lure Grimm to the city, which is something she should be thinking about since she's supposed to be the one overseeing and protecting the citizens of Argus. So, yeah, just harboring more negative emotion doesn't really help anything. Secondly, what we have to look at now, because I like the music. I think the music was the good part to this fight, and some of the comedy was pretty good. It landed pretty well, I think. But for the most part, I just look at this Cordovan fight as a fight that could have been avoided, and that could have been done a tad bit differently. Now, moving on from that, the Big Metal Shoe, that song is great. Jeff and Casey Lee did a great job. I have to say, you all did a good job on that song. The animation and choreography, I don't think it was as good during the Cordovan fight. I think it was okay. I mean, it could have been worse, it could have been better, but I think that it could have been a little faster paced in certain areas. So that's one thing I think I just personally have an issue with that. But other than that, that fight was just okay. It wasn't great, wasn't terrible, it was just alright. It was okay. The one that really made me just like this episode a lot more was the fight between Adam and Blake. I think the choreography in that one was what kept me way more entertained, and I thought that was a much better fight than Cordovan versus RWBY's group. So there's that. And moving on to that, because we're going to get into that now. A few things here that I want to note. I liked the animation choreography for the Adam and Blake fight. I think that was good. I think that was well done. And this is something we need to see more of. Like I said, Cinder and Neo, great. Need more of that. Adam and Blake, need more of that. This fight animation choreography, this is what we need more of. This is something that I like. The fast-paced fighting, just all of it. It's good. And the body motions seem like they work. And I like that. So I got to give the animators credit. I think that they did a very good job on the Adam, Blake, and Yang fight. So here's the positives and the negatives to the Adam and Blake fight aside from the animation. Okay, so let's get into the good stuff first. I like that Blake understood Yang's feelings of protection, how it shouldn't be Blake protecting Yang, and I think it's good that they both see that they should both be protecting one another, that Blake finally sees that it's not about Blake protecting Yang, and it's not about Yang protecting Blake, as I stated. It's about both of them protecting one another, and I like that Blaine came to that understanding. Now, the next thing I liked, the fondness discrimination that Adam had. The branding over his eye was great to show the discrimination of the fondness. It didn't have to specifically tell you, because showing you that basically tells you how bad it is for the fondness and how they really have it. I liked that. That was great. That was well done. But when Adam starts going on about how people have hurt him, many people in many different ways, okay, that's alright. I was liking where it was going there. And then he's like, nobody hurt me like you, Blake. And that's where the ball was dropped. That's where it made me kind of irritated. Because the thing is, Adam had such potential. Volume 3 proved that he had such potential. He didn't even want to be involved in human affairs. He even told Cinder that. He wanted justice for the Faunus. This was good. This was good motive. And yeah, he was selfish, but it was still interesting. And the character short made up, in my opinion, for what Volume 5 did to Adam when they nerfed him and one-shot him and then he runs away. I think that that character short made up for some of these issues, but it didn't make me like him because I was afraid that they would do this. They would pull the stunt again, and then they would just drop the ball on Adam's character again. And now that he's going along saying that Blake is the one who did the most damage to him of anything, I think that just insults Adam's character. That doesn't help him. And why would one person, because they left him, why would that be the most impactful pain he ever went through when he's gone through ridicule and hate because of being a faunus, because the humans see faunus as nothing but cattle? That's the entire point of the brand, is to show you that they just think of them as cattle. But no, they instead just go back to the idea of Blake being the worst thing that ever happened to Adam, and I just don't like that motive. I'm sorry, I just don't like that motive. And if you do, you like the motive. It's just my personal opinion. But I just think that Volume 5 ruined him, and although the character short, I liked pretty much the vast majority of that, it doesn't help what just happened in this chapter. It doesn't help that. And I think they lost a lot of potential in a character that had great potential. I think Adam did have excellent potential, and I think that they just dropped the ball. It kind of makes me wonder if they knew what direction to take Adam after Volume 3. I kind of question that, because it feels like they threw his identity away of who he was. And that's a problem I find in Adam. It feels like the only thing that was left was Blake. Now, while they did push in that he was upset with Blake in Volume 3, realistically, it wasn't the thing that drove him, though. And then they make that his one and only drive. So, really, I find this to be a problem. I don't really like this, and I think that this is something that could have been better. I think that they could have written Adam better in this degree. And one final problem that I have is Yang and her PTSD. I feel like when it came to her PTSD, I feel like she could have had a little bit more of a moment with that, a little bit more of a struggle, trying to come to terms with her PTSD while trying to fight Adam at the same time. I think that there could have been maybe a small breakdown, not something overly huge, but something that would be worrisome for her, because this is supposed to be something that he did that was traumatic to her, and it feels like the weight of the PTSD is just gone. It feels like it's not really there or even present. I mean, yeah, we saw Yang's hand shaking, but I feel like they could have done more with that. I think that what they should have done here is have Blake almost be killed, and then have Yang come in to start fighting better, or start to fight because she's about to witness her death. I think that would have been a good way to do it. But at the same time, when it comes to PTSD, and this is something that I also realize, is that you're going to do multiple different things. People react differently with their traumatic problems. And Yang chose to fight, despite her fear. And sometimes you have to stand up to your fears, and that is something I understand. So I guess that's what she did with it. Overall, I think that this chapter is an average 7. I mean, I like certain parts, like the new song by Jeff Williams. I like the animation and fight choreography between Blake, Yang, and Adam. I like the laughable jokes they had, but I think that Adam's character, and I'm not even a fan of Adam, but I think that Adam's character was treated badly. I like the faunus discrimination, though, with the branding, but I just feel like they stripped him of his original motive and made him more like the crazy ex-boyfriend, and I think they could have just done a little more with Yang's PTSD. But anyways, overall I find this to be an average chapter. I'll be back again on Tuesday. Let me know what you think down below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments down below. But anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and if you did enjoy, hit the video with a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and share this with your friends if you found this video informative or useful. Anyways, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful and fantastic day today, and remember, if today was not a good day, tomorrow could always be better. Take care of yourselves and everyone around you, and have yourselves a good one out there, everybody.